first question is about measurement. And we have a lot of measurement challenges in the media business. We're using old measurement formats that aren't effective. They're not measuring properly cross-device and cross-screen scenarios. We have attribution issues, viewability, etc. So I guess I wanted to ask each of you, what are we getting wrong in terms of measurement, and how can we resolve this? What are some of the practical ways of confronting this?
I think what we're getting wrong is we think we can solve this problem by educating clients. And well, if we just sit them down and explain to them engagement rate, if we just explain to them viewability and why that's different in digital, maybe they'll come around and they'll see the success that are driving them. And I find that to be kind of a condescending, almost insulting way. I mean, tonight, the Democratic debate is on tonight, and if you ever try to explain something to someone on the other side of the aisle, well, if I just keep educating them, they'll see my side. You'll know sort of what's happening here. I think that if we want to do this right, we simply ask our clients, what do you see as success? How do you define success? And you'll be amazed at what they tell you is it's plain English. They're not talking about digital micrometrics. They'll say something like, well, and we did this, we asked our clients. And they said, well, I want to make sure that you're showing my ad to a real person who sees it in the right place and not too many times. That's it. Like, oh, wow, okay, I can explain that to my mom, right? And suddenly, we have a framework for creating a new metric. In our case, we call it CPVM, for cost per valuable impression, which again, it sort of defines to a more humanistic type thing. Did you show the right ad to the right person? And then we give that sort of combined metric that includes fraud and viewability and on-target delivery and frequency, which for some reason gets overlooked a lot. It works. It drives business results at the end. And the thing that I think is most important is that it encourages good behavior from publishers. I know we have some publishers out here tonight, but the history, and you guys know this better than I, the history of online measurement has been creating a measurement and then have it being gamed, right? So whether it's click-through rates or last view attribution or video completes, we put out the measurement and then someone games it, right? So instead of trying to find that magic bullet, we've combined multiple metrics, sort of like baseball, the sophisticated metrics, what are they called? Power metrics? You guys know what these things are. So, yeah, exactly, saber metrics. Into one that encourages good behavior by publishers, that clients understand, and that allows us to optimize on a real-time basis and gives us results. It's not rocket science, and the more we make it like rocket science, the less it works.
Okay, Ben, Jordan, John, what are we getting wrong in terms of measurement, and how can we confront this, or what are we getting right?
So other than those really large issues that you brought up from Shelley Palmer's piece, which I'll put aside for a moment, I don't know if I would describe it as what we're getting wrong when I say this, but the industry is moving so fast, and platforms have evolved so quickly, and technology is evolving so quickly, that I think a lot of this has to do with how quickly can we keep up. And I don't mean that by saying that agencies or clients or anyone for that matter can't physically keep up, but it's just that if we're measuring one thing today on a platform and then tomorrow there's a new platform that we're trying to measure and it has an entirely new set of metrics that we have to incorporate into our success and failure rate, then we have to get on that. And it might be that we then have to have third parties that are measuring that space, and they're not yet doing that. And so it gets to a place where you might have, a number of years ago been trying to measure effectively, let's call it, display, television, radio, and print. And now we have all these different flavors that we're trying to measure at the same time. So I don't think we're doing that wrong. I just think we haven't been able to do it right yet.
John.
Yeah, I would add to that too, that digital, and by the way, I think this is somewhat, just going back to Shelley's piece, I think the wonderful thing about where we are now is that we're more measurable than we've ever been before. And so there's a huge opportunity to talk to hundreds of millions of people almost individually, and to time and target advertising to individuals. And of course that brings along with it its issues and its problems, and there are issues around transparency and all those sorts of things. But I think they're born out of opportunity, and these are things that we absolutely are addressing and fixing. So that's Shirley's piece. I think it's true, and I think it's a good thing to raise, but it's born out of opportunity. I think to add to what Ben and Jordan have said is, part of the problem is that there are too many areas that we can measure. So there's almost an infinite amount of measurement, and there are new things all the time. If you speak to somebody about engagement, if there are 10 people in the room, there'll be 15 opinions about what engagement may mean. And so some level of focus in that area, what really drives engagement, what really drives sales, how do we connect the impression with what happens at the supermarket is critical. We're getting closer and closer to that now. Real true attribution modeling, figuring out what type of attribution works, and it's not last click attribution, but what really works for that particular client, I think is important. And then the other thing that worries me a lot about measurement is that so much of it is driven down to a CPM, and it's in today's kind of procurement-driven environment. So much of what we see, and particularly in the automated buying and the programmatic area, it's driven by cost, and that leads to the gaming of measurement, because you can really game and you can really manipulate impressions in favor of cost. And what happened with what's really good for the brand? What happened with what's really working for the brand, and what's driving predisposition to purchase, predisposition to engage with the brand? So I would worry about those two things. One is focus, not measure too many things, and the other one is price.
Right.
You're talking about measuring. Nadia, I like this idea of how we're measuring ourselves. So, gee, if we can measure more things than we ever had before, why are we so goddamn hard on ourselves all the time? And it's amazing how we've just sort of, as much as we've added to our measurement arsenal, we moved the goalpost to this ideal place where we know every single ad's been shown to every person on every platform. We know who it is, and we can tie it all the way back to the sale. Because we can't do that yet, we suck. We are not doing our job. That seems, I mean, not to pat ourselves on the back, that's a little unfair and a little bit more ambitious than I think than we can do today, and that's kind of okay.
Yeah, it was interesting when the viewability issue came up. What we try to say, a lot of clients said, you start these conversations with, it's not a good start when a client says, do you mean to tell me that? And so do you mean to tell me that X percentage of my ads are not being viewed? And it's another iteration. Just 10 years ago, ad serving, third-party ad serving was a huge step forward from where we were before. Now I think the viewability metric is a massive step forward, but it's a positive iteration. It's not, we can't look back and say, oh well, because we're now able to measure viewability, everything before that was terrible. It's actually better, and I think it's getting better now that we can control fraud and that we can measure viewability and we can be much more specific. It's getting better all the time. So Ben, I agree with you. I mean, it's not that we suck. There's a lot to learn, and I think we'll continue to iterate as we go through digital. But that's the exciting part about digital. It's so measurable.